Thank you very much, Ranking Member. I appreciate the chairman for holding this hearing today and being serious about creating a framework for digital assets in the United States, and certainly appreciate all of you and your willingness to be here with us and testify on this important topic. Obviously, it's a very complicated issue, a lot of moving parts. We've seen some fireworks today. One of the primary points is just around definitions. You know, how do we properly define digital commodity versus digital security, and what does that actually mean for the role of our regulators? We know digital asset securities can share many characteristics with traditional securities, but they're not inherently the same, and regulation needs to reflect that. Much like applying, traditional regulatory framework to a new decentralized finance system, it just doesn't work. I'm concerned about the compliance burdens for developers and for startups and how we actually strike the right balance between the two. I've seen firsthand what happens to our small businesses and our small financial institutions when you have overregulation, and it becomes unsustainable. So my first question is actually for Ms. Mersinger. We are dealing with a rapidly evolving industry here, and we can't predict every change, right? So how do we create a framework that puts up the proper guardrails and the clarity that we actually need today without locking in rules that quickly become outdated? I'd love your thoughts on that and kind of your thoughts on how we approach that.
Thank you for that question. And I will say, as a former commissioner at CFTC, I believe this is a reason why there is so much interest in having the CFTC as a regulator over the digital spot market. It's because they have a principles-based regulatory regime, which provides that flexibility. So as technology changes, those companies, those startups, those small businesses can still operate and fulfill their regulatory duties, but not be subject to a prescriptive regulatory framework that locks into place the technology and the systems or the processes they're using when it's put in place. So I think the most important thing you can do is have principles-based regulatory regime and prevent having prescriptive regulations around this industry.
Are there kind of permanent and durable mechanisms that would actually encourage innovation? I guess my question, has the regulatory sandbox been beneficial in this regard, and kind of sort of how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been talk about sandboxes being a helpful tool.
Okay.
Both the SEC and the CFTC have exemptive authority that they can use. Mm-hmm. There's the ability to use staff no action letters and relief. So there are.
Would you recommend that?
Yeah, there are a lot of tools in place that they can use to still oversee and regulate the space, but not stifle the innovation that is occurring and developing.
I'm going to shift gears real quick in my remaining time. Mr. Levin, I've heard the narrative that digital asset transactions are completely anonymous and beyond the reach of law enforcement. I disagree with this. As with any financial instrument or new technology, there's always going to be bad actors. And we should, of course, where any loophole exists, we should find it and close it and not enable illicit activity. But from my understanding, blockchain technology actually can offer an enhanced level of security, perhaps even more resistant to manipulation. And transactions on the blockchain offer a unique ability for tracing and tracking, including analyzing trends on the ledger. So, Mr. Levin, can you speak to this, both to the narrative that digital assets are untraceable and to what type of tools are available to identify and to actually combat bad actors?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. This is exactly the business that we at Chainalysis have been building for the last 10 years. We build tools and technology that actually allows law enforcement, regulators, businesses to actually track and trace cryptocurrency with the relevant context about where to get additional information if there is some sort of investigation or some sort of disruption action that needs to happen. I would say that there are two levels of tooling that is worthwhile the committee understanding, which is, one is there are actual forensic tools that are being used in investigations where you are looking at very specific transactions of interest that have been flagged either through regulatory reporting or investigations. And then also the blockchain actually allows for a much more macro view of trends and threats that are persisting against society. And so you could actually investigate ransomware as a whole threat to the United States of America and look at the entire supply chain that causes ransomware to have impact on our communities and find where there is an opportunity for actual disruption of that supply chain for the threat.
Thank you so much, and I am out of time, but would love to continue this conversation with you, in particular, how we empower our state and local law enforcement with the tools they need so that they're better equipped in this regard. So thank you so much, and with that, I will recognize Senator Van Hollen.